Ciao, amici. Welcome to the YouTube channel of That Eurovision site and That Eurovision podcast, bringing you all things Eurovision with a slice of life. My name is Isabelle, my pronouns are they, them, and joining me is my comrade in Sanremo, Janek, who uses any pronouns. We're filming this video about 24 hours after the final of Sanremo 2023. About 24 hours after the final began, I should say. Though this has been the week-long Italian festival of music, the winner of which was once again this year given the first refusal to represent Italy at Eurovision. So Marco Mengoni won with his song Due Vite in a landslide victory. And in a press conference this afternoon, he confirmed that he will go to Eurovision, though he has suggested in an interview with TG1 that he may change the song. That's still to be decided. He said he's going to head back to the studio and have a think. His song Due Vite is about 45 seconds too long for Eurovision guidelines anyway. So he is going to, we're looking at a revamp either way. We may be looking at a different song in the contest, but Marco will go to Eurovision. Janek, how do you feel about Marco's win and about the possibility of a different song to Due Vite going to Liverpool?
If you saw the previous videos of Sanremo, you know that I'm a massive Marco Mengoni stan, and it didn't change during the week. I think I was like not a lot of people on Twitter or on social media really were behind Due Vite, but personally this is my kind of ballad and my kind of songs, and I understand the criticism that it's getting, that it's too much Sanremo ballady, like it's too safe, but I feel like Due Vite isn't a song that should be listened to in the studio. I feel like you have to watch the performance, because Marco brings the song to life with his vocals, with his charisma. I understand also the criticism that he doesn't look at the cameras, but I feel like he's more of his thing. But maybe we don't know him. Why? That's the thing, because the same thing was happening 10 years ago. So we don't know. Due Vite is very, very, very beautiful. It was one of my favorites of Sanremo this week. I would say my favorite, but there are a lot of few songs that were pretty much as much my favorite as Due Vite. And I was very happy that the recognition he was getting this week. I was not expecting this landslide. I was not expecting that. It was very much a surprise for me. I knew Marco is a big name in Italy and has been for a while, but I was not expecting a landslide from him, especially when it comes to other artists that are in selection. There were some very much big names from Sanremo and from Italian music overall. So yeah, I'm very happy that Marco won, and 10 years after he won for the first time, it's very poetic, I would say. 10 years after, he's in different state of his career than he was 2013, because 2013 was when he was barely after winning X Factor, goes to Sanremo, when Sanremo goes to Eurovision, and now his career goes for another 10 years. His style of music is a bit different than 10 years ago. So I'm very excited to see Marco in Liverpool, and I hope the best. And I will be cheering. I for sure will be cheering no matter what. When it comes to the song, I personally wouldn't mind Due Vite staying, and I think looking at how the Eurovision is this year, because as we know, the semis are televotes only, so we could see that a lot of countries bringing songs that are televote friendly compared to the countries in the Big Five plus the host that are maybe bringing something that could reach to juries more than televotes. I would say some countries we have some. Of course, we have some already. We have some songs that are very much not televote baity, like Estonia this year, Like we saw Alika winning. This is a jury-friendly song, not a televote-friendly song. So that's why I'm thinking my statement might be wrong. So with the change of the song, I could see why he could be doing that, because Dua Vita is 3 minutes and 45 seconds long. I don't see anything that could be cut out from this song. Anything. That's why I am scared for the cutout, because we know we have some bad history with Italy's cutting their songs. One example I could say is of Italy's Karma.
Although there's no polishing a turd, so I mean I would like to see them cut the whole song. Sorry, who said that?
Yeah,
moving on.
Moving on.
We're swiftly along from
in Italy's Karma, the cut feels very weird. Like they go, the chorus ends and they go straight after the pre-chorus. I feel they cut out the whole verse, which I thought was a very weird choice. But there were also good cuts. Like I thought Saudi had a great cut. City Boni, I don't remember if City Boni was already 3 minutes.
Tiny cut.
It was tiny cut, but I don't remember
the second verse, the rap verse comes in a bit quicker in the Eurovision.
I think that's better. That's even better.
It actually works perfectly for Eurovision. Yeah.
With Dua Vita, I have no idea how he's going to cut it.
45
no idea.
seconds is a lot.
45 seconds is a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just says, "Hey, let's write another song. That's 3 minutes long." And okay, so force for that is like, okay, he could write something more Eurovision friendly, I would say, than a ballad. That Dua Vita is pretty much a Sanremo type ballad. That's why he could write something that wouldn't exactly be popular in Sanremo when he would send it. He could also choose something from his album that got released in like October or November. But also there's some of the songs were released before, but you had to look at the songs that just came out with the album. But I thought about these songs are also, most of them are longer than 3 minutes. So I would say don't complicate it. Just go straight to basics and think what he could be doing from the new song. If he's preparing a new song, I hope it's his up-tempo type songs, because they are pretty much his up-tempo songs are no different than you could say every other artist. I think Marco has a very specific sound when it comes to his up-tempo, and it's beautifully shown in his albums. So I think if he wants to change, maybe go to the up-tempo kind of sound. If not, if he miraculously cuts Dua Vita to 3 minutes, I would be also praising him, because that would be hard. That's why he said that he has to go to the studio and just take a listen to his band. But we don't know when, because he said that for now he's just enjoying his victory. He will probably have a break from everything. He also said that the first thing he did after winning is calling his mom. But his mom
missed his call apparently twice. She was too busy celebrating in the local square. I love that.
I loved. Overall, Marco was very humble the whole week. I love him. He was very, very much grateful for all the votes. The moment he won and he came out of the theater, there's a video of him just kneeling down before all the fans and just thanking him, like full Asian bow. So I'm like,
he seems like a lovely man. Famiglia Essenziale, his 2013 Eurovision song, it really epitomizes to this day a lot of the stuff that kind of made me disillusioned a little bit with Italy in Eurovision. He's really accomplished. He's got a wonderful voice, and his work is good. But I have to say I was disappointed that, like, I always saw this in a way. I was always a little bit I always saw this coming, because he's such a huge name. I didn't quite see that it being such a landslide. There were other artists who I really did think would give him a run for his money who didn't at all, which was surprising to me. But given how popular he is, it didn't. I mean, he came first with like every segment of the vote. He, it's it's not there's no way of contesting this victory. He's absolutely the artist that Italy wanted to send to Eurovision overall. I wish that it was with a more interesting song, because Due Vite doesn't feel like, I'm sure that for a fan it does feel like a progression, it feels like evolution. It's not a bad song, obviously it's not a bad song. It's just, to me, it's I would be very excited to see him go to the studio and come back with a different song. It doesn't even need to be more Eurovision friendly. I kind of hate like this idea of people pitching things specifically for Eurovision. I don't think it tends to yield very good results. But I do like the idea of Marco having already been to Eurovision with a sentimental, very Italian, classic kind of ballad, a love song. I like the idea of him coming back to Eurovision 10 years later. That is poetic. That is quite pleasing, with an up-tempo Italian, very Italian banger. I think that would be fantastic, and I'm really hoping for that. I've seen on social media a lot of people who are Marco fans really hoping that, expressing the same sort of fear about the cut. If he sticks with Due Vite, what he's going to cut is something that is like kind of, I can see a lot of my socials are full of people being like anxious about that. Imagine being that anxious about Due Vite. It couldn't be me having that much vested interest. All right, listen. But I get it. If like your favorite song is like 3 minutes 45 and like nearly a quarter of the song has to be cut for it to go to Eurovision, yeah, I'd be pissing myself too. So I hope for everyone's sake that he comes back with a different song and an up-tempo song. And he's a wonderful artist, so I actually do have a lot of faith in him, and he seems like a lovely guy. So, you know, I will support him in Liverpool, even though he was absolutely not my choice to win. And speaking of that, you've already said, Janek, that Marco is your one true love, and you love Due Vite, obviously. I remember you saying all week Due Vite was probably your favourite song in the competition, but that it wasn't your pick for the win. And that it wasn't the song you wanted to see at Eurovision. So I'm curious, just briefly, which artist and which song in this selection would have been your preferred choice for Liverpool if you'd had your way?
The moment I've heard Il bene nel male on Wednesday. So the days just blur out. I wanted Madame in Eurovision pretty much since I heard Il bene nel male. Since Madame took part in Sanremo 2020, she has been in my playlist since then, and the type of music she produces, she writes, and she sings, I think would do very well in Eurovision. And it's something different from Italy, because first of all, it's a woman. That's a change for Italy, and a female rapper also, and thinking about the topic that not a lot of people are deciding to sing. I know not the lyrics sometimes could be.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't be too quick to congratulate her for singing about the topic, and I'll say that because as Rosie has already written about extensively in her incredible editorial called...
Which we will link in the description down below.
Yes, we will. Thank you. So Madame's piece was written from two perspectives, if I'm not mistaken, both the sex worker and a client. And obviously that in itself is great. But the problem is that, as with pretty much every piece that's ever written from a sex worker point of view or with a sex worker in the subject, it falls into tropes and cliches, and it ends up actually kind of, I don't know. It would be nice to hear a song that kind of doesn't push sex work down, that doesn't sort of, end up falling into the same old tropes that actually are in the end harmful to sex workers. Also, as far as we know, none of the people who've ever entered with, pieces about sex workers have been themselves sex workers. I mean, obviously, people may not choose to disclose that, but so for me it doesn't sit comfortably. I agree though that it would have done great at Eurovision. It's a banger. I mean, my goodness, Madame's song is a banger. It's really, and it is complex. Like, we've had a lot of conversations all week about the lyrical content. It is interesting. There's a lot in there that's really interesting and really refreshing. It's just that for me, I still feel very uncomfortable about its handling. And I know that Rosie has expressed sort of I don't want to speak for Rosie, obviously she's not here, but Rosie, who is a sex worker, has, expressed similar sort of discomfort with, interest in it and discomfort in it. It's like, it's not straightforward. It's not like, oh, it's a bad example of a song that has that as its subject, but it's also, it would have been a kind of a mess, actually, in a way, to take that to Eurovision. Like, maybe it would have been good. Maybe it would have like sparked a lot of good conversation, but it was the international fans' pick, according to a lot of the fan polls as well. And I just wonder how many people are listening to it and even thinking about that. I actually have a feeling listening to it and not thinking about the lyrical content. Yeah, no one not thinking about the lyrical content at all. Just having a good time. But I mean, that's a topic for a whole. We could literally write a whole editorial on that. It's like such a rich and complex topic. I've been picking over those lyrics literally all week, being like, but this is so interesting and cool, and like it's addressing emotional labor, and some of this is, Rosie has said, is actually really accurate, and then like other parts of it is like, oh, sex work is a bad thing again. That's depressing. Oh, the sex worker falling in love with her client. Come on. These are tropes that are not helpful. So there's a lot to unpick there. I was surprised that it didn't do better. And
the people in the arena were mad that
there was booze. There was booze every night that she didn't make it to the top of the ranking.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me it was Elodie Due that I wanted to see at Eurovision. She was hands down my winner all week, and I also think that would have been a real coup for Italy. Would she have done well? I don't know. Due Vita is if Marco brings Due Vita to Eurovision, the juries will eat it up. I mean, it could literally be a jury winner. I don't think it's particularly televote friendly, but people love an Italian sad lad with a romantic ballad, so I wouldn't do badly. But Elodie was. I fell in love with her this week. Actually,
good.
Yes, Janek
it was my master plan all along.
Yes, Janek. The whole time leading up to this, I was aware that Elodie is one of Janek's 85 mothers. Our family tree is getting ever more complicated because now she's my wife. So I don't know. That makes me Janek's step parent. I don't know how to feel about that. We now have some mothers in common as well, because like I've decided that Georgia and Elisa are also my mothers. It's all getting very complicated over here. I would have also liked to see Colapesce di Martino go to Eurovision. I still think that they will. I mean, I hope that they will. I think that they should. That I think that their musical style is so fun and refreshing and rich and beautiful. And I did love Splash. I would have been really happy if it had won, even though it wasn't my winner. And of the 5 who made it to the super final, I think that Supereroi would have been Mr. Rain would have been such a beautiful moment at Eurovision. I think that could have absolutely it could have been so beautiful. Lazza was my winner out of that final 5. Cenere is a banger, and again, very refreshing, very different for Italy. It would have been so cool to see Italy bring something in that musical style, of more sort of electronic heavy and more urban dance music style. It would have been so interesting. It was so good lyrically as well. Like, I just really loved Cenere in the end.
You talked about Due, about Elodie. I love Due, but when it comes to, I was kind of disappointed with Due. Like, knowing her discography, I was kind of disappointed.
Can't relate.
Like,
I find that wild.
She released an album recently called Okay Respira, and the single Okay Respira I was thinking, maybe why didn't you wait with this one and send it?
I disagree. I actually think Due was the stronger competition song. And maybe that it's that I was looking at it through the eyes of a competition more so as well. And without having fallen in love with the album, I'd heard it, but I wasn't like invested. She wasn't, my wife yet, you see. Yes. So I wasn't as invested at that point. Because to me, I think that was great. But like Due, I fell in love with. And I particularly fell in love with her performance style.
Yeah.
And also
that's just an Elodie thing. Like,
it was also kind of a banger. Like, that's the other thing. It's like balmy. It had a really balmy sort of kind of almost not quite Latin, but there was definitely some kind of Latin element in.
I mean, she's from that area, I think.
What area?
She has roots from. Move on.
Oh, she has Latin American roots?
I don't. I don't think it's Latin American. Sorry, but
Oh, okay. Janek invents
uh,
law on the
she
fly.
is. She has Creole.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. Oh,
Her mother is her mother. Yeah, she's the daughter for her father is Italian. Her mother is French, but she comes
hence
from
the
the
name
Creole
Elodie.
family. She comes from Guadalupe.
Oh,
So yeah,
snap. So French, but
French. Yeah,
French, French Caribbean, yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool to know. Okay, that's so cool. She's like even more my wife now. Okay, I mean that may or may not have anything to do with, it may have nothing to do with it, right? But I did really appreciate that, like that compelling extra added compelling element. It's not unusual either in Italian music. It's not like we never see that kind of slightly balmier summer kind of, you can just kind of feel the beach and the romance in the air with that kind of like,
Narobali, Michele Bravi and Elodie.
oh yes. Yes, see, the Italians can do like a summer banger, right? Like it's my favorite kind of Italian music, actually, is summer banger.
Yeah.
Like, balmy summer banger, often their duets. But yeah, Elodie didn't need to make it a duet. She just brought a balmy summer banger to the main contest, and I just really appreciated her for that. Yeah, so in love with Elodie. But yes, getting back on track, we've derailed slightly. We're like both of us hearts in our eyes. So speaking of the super final and the top 5, this was new. Sanremo this year had the top 5 battle it out in a super final. In past years, it's been a top 3, and they haven't had a final battle. They've just, named the top 3 and then had everybody vote on just that top 3 again. Now, this year, they actually all performed one final time at the end of the final, which I loved, by the way. I thought that was a very good way of ramping up the tension and kicking us awake a little bit when we were all sort of starting to nod off at the end there. But the outcome of that was that, of course, Marco won. Lazza came second with Cenere, as we've already mentioned. Mr. Rain third with Supereroi. Ultimo came fourth with Alba, and Tananai fifth with Tango. Just to run through the other awards that were also given out on the night of the final, we also saw Colapesce and Di Martino win the Lucia Dalla Press Award and the Mia Martini Critics Award for their song Splash. The Sergio Bardotti Prize for the best lyrics went to Come Cose for L'Addio, and the Giancarlo Bigazzi Prize for musical composition was awarded to Marco Mengoni for Due Vite. A lot of disappointment has already been expressed in general on the webs and in person about the lack of female representation in the final top 5. Since the third night, the end of the third night, when the televote and demoscopic rankings were added to the press and jury, the press jury rankings, there's been discourse and dissatisfaction with this. The combined press rankings at the start of the third night had Madame and Elodie in 3rd and 5th, respectively. Giorgia managed to place 5th overall after coming 4th on the covers night. But in the end, with the combined kind of approximately 1/3 each weighted, so 1/3 each between the televote, the press jury, and the demoscopic jury, that final combined score every time had almost no representation, and sometimes no representation of women at all. Giorgia managing to place 5th for the one time, those final 3 nights, that we saw a woman in the top 5. So Marco, in his victory speech, to his credit, in his victory speech on the Ariston stage itself, as soon as he was announced, and also then in the winners' press conference this afternoon, he acknowledged the lack of female representation in the super final, said he was very upset, given that all of the women, I believe it was 11 women in total across 9 different acts, that they all had incredible songs. He said, given the quality of their songs, especially, he was upset that none of them made it to the super final. And he dedicated his win to all of the women who competed in Sanremo this year. And finally, he said, something has to change in Italy. Something has to change in Italy.
Amen.
Right? So what did you think of the results overall, Janek?
Pain and suffering. First of all the Giovanni babies being literally from 2028, like Sefo last, Shari second to last, Will third to last, or Oli third and fourth to last. The only act who got not bottom 5 was Horacio, which was 20th, compared to the previous first night when they were
10th, I think.
10th?
They were. I believe Corazio were 10th with the press on the after their first performance.
Like, why Egoista was so freaking good.
Thank you. Shari is so underrated. Okay, I see no one talking about her. Egoista.
I have like one person on Twitter I follow who has been a Shari stan since Giovanni, and bless him, bless his heart, because he has been hyping up Shari for the past months. I thank him because
bless his heart indeed. I recognize that her first performance was a little shaky vocally. The song slaps, but her first performance was a little shaky vocally. She just got stronger and stronger. Like from the second night, I was like, oh, this is one of my favorites. Egoista, my second or my like one of my favorites in my top 3. Okay, every night seeing her at the bottom there. Hey, all of the Giovanni artists came, I mean, in my opinion, obviously, and I know that you feel a bit differently, came to the main competition with stronger songs, I thought, than in Giovanni. Corazio had 2 great songs, but I mean, none of them came with a bad song to the main contest. I'm not an Ollie fan, but like all of the others, I literally thought that they were really really severely underrated. I sat up and took notice of Shari especially, but like the Setu being dead last every night was so not warranted. That was Cause Perse was not bottom 5 material, I don't think.
Manifesting the same thing for him that happened with Tananai, because Tananai went from dead last to top 5 this year, so that's I'm so proud of him for that. And one result that just destroyed me is Levante coming 23rd. This is my second place of the festival. First of all, I've been a Levante stan for years. Just she has always her music is just poetic and different than what you could say. Sirene is just so ethereal, and when coming to the Sanremo, I thought she would be one of the contenders. Understandable, the first night she was kind of nervous. I understand this was probably her first performance since she came back from being pregnant, and the whole song being about women. Maybe that's why it didn't do well, because it's about women.
She was. I mean, Anna Oxa was also really. Like, I was even below her, right?
Yeah, but
many
Anna Oxa is a different being when it
a
comes to Italy.
Different entity. No, I was going to say that of all the established artists, Levante was the lowest ranked woman, and then I realized that's not true, because Anna Oxa was actually ranked even below her every night. But yes, Vivo is about reclaiming your body, reclaiming your womanhood, reclaiming your identity and your life, specifically for her after childbirth and after that difficult period after childbirth. Very, very kind of for her, very much about her womanhood, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if that just people didn't.
Levante just was paid dust the whole week. The other just sadness was Paola Chiara doing poorly, but they came to Sanremo not expecting to win. They just went and hey, remember us? We were your whole teenagehood. I'm gonna bring some memories to you, and I applaud them. They were iconic. The whole.
I'm glad in a way that they came, and I'm sure that there are some Paola and Chiara like super fans out there who were disappointed that they didn't do better, and who maybe even were disappointed in Furore. But it was a banger. Like, yes, they're not the most incredible singers, but like, who cares? That was not what they were there for. I appreciate them for coming and not shying away from the absolute noughties camp that they represent. Like, they were covered head to toe in glitter. Their dancers were covered even more head to toe with glitter. They had the fucking conductor covered, like his face all covered in glitter. It was noughties, early noughties club fun, and they really leaned into that. I do appreciate them for that, because you know, they were there to have a really fun time, and it's nice to see that, you know, people not taking themselves too seriously as well. I think that's especially difficult for female artists to do, you know, because they're so required to make a statement or to kind of earn their position in a contest. And so actually Paola and Chiara coming in and doing that was like you say, iconic behavior. I have to echo the pain of watching every night. I mean, I never thought that I'd say this, but the first 2 nights, the ranking, I mean, with some notable exceptions, I was like, oh my God, do I agree with the Italian press? Am I the Italian press now? You know, because there was a night that Elodie didn't Elodie wasn't Elodie ranked first with the press?
No, she was second, because it was the same night as Marco. So top 2 was Marco, Elodie. But she was, I think, 5th overall in the press.
Yeah, Elodie ranked second with the press. Like, you know, Colapesce Di Martino won with the press the second night. Like, there's a lot that, but by and large, there was a lot. It felt a lot more. There were injustices, but it felt a lot more like in keeping with my own kind of, you know, ranking and impressions. And then, you know, and then the televote and the demoscopic were added in, and I just started to really despair. I have a love-hate relationship with Italy in general in Eurovision, and also I have learned in Sanremo. Like, I've only been a Sanremo watcher properly for the last 2 years, but that really tested me. I thought the quality of the songs was so high this year compared to last year, which was that's my main point of comparison, because it's the only other year I've ever watched in full, and to see pretty much all of my favorites just pay dust was really hard for me. So I had a pretty bad time with the rankings personally. I've already said there were only 11 women in the whole contest. That's fewer. I mean, given how many male artists there were in groups as well. I haven't actually counted them up, but I think that that's only about a quarter of all of the artists across all 28 acts. Only a quarter of the artists on the stage were women. And it's only 9 acts, so fewer than a third of the acts had a woman in them. So I'm counting Come Cose, who's 1 woman, 1 man, you know. And already I'm casting my mind back, Janek, to when we did our like earlier videos when we were getting really excited about the artist reveals. Gosh, how naive we were. Do you remember we were like, this is Elodie's year. Let's go, Elodie win. Finally. What were we thinking? That already felt like a lot for Sanremo, to have nearly a third of the acts with a woman, you know, featuring a woman, already felt like a lot. But it's not even a third. That's a problem to me. Women artists are not represented, and that even reflects in the fact that, yes, and we're going to move on to talking about the shows themselves a little bit before we wrap up, but yes, our hosts are fantastic. I love Amadeus, and I loved Gianni Morandi co-hosting with Amadeus every night this year. What a highlight. He stole our hearts last year, and obviously he's an icon and a national treasure in Italy, you know, and he's national treasure in Eurovision really as well, right? Like, he's got all this kind of deep connection to both contests, both Sanremo and to Eurovision. I loved that duo. I want them to keep it, you know, let's have Gianni next year too. And I do appreciate that they had like a rotation of female co-hosts coming in, and, you know, Chiara Ferragni coming in for both the first night. I know you love her, the first night and the last night. She was fantastic too. She was really great. We had some absolutely amazing female co-hosts every night. It's been pointed out more than once, though, again on the socials by Italians, not just by the international crowd, the international viewership, that there's something that sits wrong with the fact that every time a woman comes onto the stage as a co-host or a guest, she has to do a monologue, almost to kind of like, in a way, she has to make a statement. Like, you can't just have a woman there to just have fun or to just be silly or to just sing a song like Gianni. Like, the woman has to come on stage, and she could be funny, she can do some comedy and all of that, but she has to do a monologue that is, and in a way I get it, it's like they're talking, they're addressing, each monologue addressed something to do with the fact that women are marginalized, or in the case of Paola, the racism that she faces in Italy, as a Black woman of Nigerian heritage, in Italy and in sports in Italy.
And in sports,
specifically in sports. But every time, and so these are important things. I'm glad that Amadeus makes it very clear that it's the women are getting to do their own sort of, to make their own statements on their own terms. Like, he was very clear about that. That he really gives them the mic, and then it's for them to do the statement. It's tough because these are important things to talk about, and at the same time it's exhausting because it's like they have to prove themselves worthy of being there, or they have to make an important political statement or social political statement in order to be given the right to be there. I would like to see women allowed to just be at Sanremo and be silly, I would like to see that, because it's the sad violins, Janek, whether it's Paola or Chiara or other Chiara, it's like they start talking, or the Iranian women that came and spoke. It's the sad violins. It just starts to lean too much into women are victims, and yes, women can be victims, but this all feels connected to me, and I've gone on about this a bit too long for a video that's just about Sanremo 2023. But because we could talk about just this specific aspect of it for hours. It's so much to unpack, and I'm sure people will be talking about it for basically until next Sanremo, and I'm sure that the conversation will be brought up again then, and reassessed, as I think it should be. I think it should be an ongoing conversation, and I just think it's something that's important and warrants thinking about. So sorry if anybody thinks that's a major downer. Let's end on a more positive note. Janek, what did you think? There was a lot that happened over the last 5 days. It's a lot to absorb. But what did you think of the shows in general? And was there a moment, or what moment stood out as highlights to you?
I really liked this year's shows. I thought the co-hosts were great. I especially liked Chiara on the first and last night. I think she brought something more out of the Amadeus and Gianni. Like the whole Instagram thing. If she wasn't there, that wouldn't be happening. That was rolling through all 5 nights. There was a lot of nice intervals. My favorite interval act was the Suzuki stage when La Rappresentantalista performed Diva and Ciao Ciao. They have been
that wasn't on the Suzuki stage. That was on the main stage, wasn't it?
No, it was the Suzuki stage.
I lost my mind.
I mean, listening to them.
Oh, it's so exciting that La Rappresentantalista is doing Ciao Ciao justice on the Ariston stage at last. I completely blanked out then. That was the Suzuki stage? Okay, cool. Wow.
Yeah. But like I think the covers night was just the highlight at its own. And there's 2 moments on the covers night that I will remember for years. First of all is the Paola Chiara melody, because this awakened something in me that was something deep inside me for a while. And my winner of the covers night was hands down, and the demoscopic and the televotes, and I think the press agreed with me. I think they were high with the televote. I don't remember exactly, but I know they won one of our 2 categories on the chorus night, but Georgia and Elisa's medley of songs that they had in 2001 Sanremo. Of course, Elisa won with Luce, and Georgia's came second with the song I forgot the title, but this was I think this had one of the biggest standing ovations in the whole week, not counting all the Marco Melgoni standing ovations, but yeah, but Alisa and Georgia, and it was the most watched moment on Friday as well. So that moment was probably my favorite moment when it comes to performances. I really like the Zelensky and the Ukrainian band at the end of night 5. Just if we are talking about Marco being an amazing person, he also mentioned that after hearing this letter, he thinks that he has a responsibility to visit Ukraine in the near future, to see what's happening right now. Or maybe and he said that he would love to do it and be joined by the Sanremo artists.
Yes, Zelensky specifically invited him, and then his response was that he would love to go to Ukraine with some of the other Sanremo artists.
Yeah, so that was very impactful for me. And overall, I love the vibes of the nights. Well, the problem was there was so many guests that were performing. I'm like, okay, I know you are an icon from the 90s, 80s of Italy, but please stop. Like some of these.
I can't wait, okay, because my highlight was I mean, this is also by night 5, I was like, my spirit was like in need of like sustenance and revival, you know. I was like basically like I'd like lost all hope, you know, by night 5. I was like, I could see how it was going, and I was like, nothing can revive me. It's all, I'm going to watch this, but I'm going to be suffering. And then, you know, realizing that Achille Lauro, my actual husband, was performing on the Suzuki stage that night. Just, that was the thing I was the most excited about on night 5. Don't at me, all right? That was the thing that I was like the most excited for. And Lauro's medley was a real highlight moment. It wasn't long enough for me, you know. It was, I'm so glad that he got to go back and obviously perform, you know, a bunch of his hits, including some of, you know, his past, in fact maybe all of his Sanremo songs. It was great. That was a really that was a really cool moment. I loved that, but I can't wait for Sanremo, you know, 2063, when you know, Achille Lauro and Maneskin will come back and, you know, actually get to perform for like 45 minutes each, because they're now like icons of Sanremo, you know. Like I think one of the beautiful things about Sanremo is that it recognizes, you know, these elders of Italian music. That's a wonderful thing. Obviously that doesn't, you know, I don't have the same connection to them as like some people in Italy do, and certainly I imagine their peers do. But, you know, Lauro and you know, Mahmoud and Maneskin, they're all kind of around my age or like younger. So 50 years in the future, I can't wait to be like an old Sanremo stan, an old Eurovision stan, sitting there and with my whiskey on my sofa, like being like all misty-eyed and like having just the time of my life watching the same people now that get like 12 minutes, you know, getting their hour on the stage. I can't wait. That's gonna be great. Let's go.
Just moving to the old artist, my friend Venere, who was helping for me with the translation the whole night.
Yes, thank you, Venere.
She said that, oh, he's the Albano, Gianni Morandi, Massimo Ranieri in the world. 3 of my grandma's favorite artists of all time.
Oh, the memes that came out of that, Albano, Massimo Ranieri, Gianni Morandi, they kept saying for the first time ever together, you know. The memes that came out of that were exceptional. I can appreciate that, even though I don't have the same connection to it, and it is beautiful. So for me, other than Lauro's medley, the reprises of the winning songs, you know, that Måneskin and Mahmoud and Blanco won with on the Ariston was so special. Just, it's always it's just, there's a magic about that stage that is just can't be replicated. And yes, it's partly the orchestra, but it's partly the fact that these artists, like, they really feel that connection when they're in Sanremo. They feel that connection to the support that they've been given. So that was really special to me. Zitia Borning on that stage is just always going to hit different, just always is. I Elodie and Big Mama's cover of American Woman will just always live in my spirit now, I think. But to me, that like epitomized the joy of seeing every single competing female artist this year killing the game. That this didn't happen last year for me personally. This year I loved every single song by a female artist, and that was just really cool. And particularly Levante's heart's cry of that reclamation of her body and her life with Vivo. It took me until that fifth night to really like absorb that into like the cells of my body, but I really fell in love with that performance and with her and with that song, and you know, just everything that represented for her. On that fifth night I just ended up like a mess, really. But yes, I mean, there was a lot, and it was a roller coaster and also a marathon. And I look forward to going through it all again next year. And that takes us to the end of our Sanremo 2023 recap. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more national final recaps, artist interviews, and discussions about all things Eurovision, including when Marco Mengoni, the winner of Sanremo 2023, drops either the revamp of Due Vite, his winning song, or announces a new song. We'll be there, we'll be here, we'll probably have lots more opinions and thoughts and feelings. So keep up with us, give us a follow, make sure the notification bell is turned on, so the first instant that we are here with a video, you're in the know. And keep up with our latest podcast episodes too by following @thateuropodcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to follow @thateurosite on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok for Eurovision-related news, features, and more. For now, ciao tutti. Ciao.